I think there is a genuine desire on the part of Iowans to feel united.
Former Iowa Governor and U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack is weighing in on what Iowa needs in its next leader.
Now that Governor Kim Reynolds won't seek re-election in 2026, some Democrats see an opportunity to change the state's political direction.
And Vilsack won under similar circumstances in 1998. It was an open seat at the time. KCCI's chief political reporter Amanda Rooker joins us in studio. Amanda, you talked to Vilsack today about some of the parallels between the race coming up in 26 and what he faced in 98.
Right, some similarities there, Stacey and Ben. Vilsack says in some ways the upcoming 2026 governor's race reminds him of his own campaign nearly 30 years ago.
This is an opportunity with Governor Reynolds making the decision not to run. That's also a similarity with 1998. Governor Branstad made the decision at that time not to run. It was an open seat, and Iowans surprisingly chose me.
When Tom Vilsack was elected Iowa governor in 1998, he became the first Democrat to lead the state in more than 3 decades. Now, Iowa Democrats see a similar opportunity. After a long stretch of Republican leadership, Iowa will once again have a wide-open race for governor.
Looking forward to 2026, do you see a similarity at all in the state to, what it was like when you were running for governor during that time?
Well, I haven't had a chance to travel around the state, so I may not be as up to speed with the politics of the day. But here's what I do know. I think there is a genuine desire on the part of Iowans to feel united in common cause. Not necessarily to be pitted against each other, and not necessarily to be in a situation where it's us and them. I think Iowans are anxious for us to be rowing in the same direction.
Vilsack encourages candidates to campaign on revitalizing rural Iowa, reflecting on his own path to the governor's mansion.
When I campaigned, I kept talking about food capital. I said, we're going to make Iowa the food capital of the world. Nobody quite understood what that meant. I wanted people to understand that I had a vision of how we could improve the state, how we could take it to a different place. An improved place, a place where we could take pride in what we do in Iowa because we were impacting and affecting the entire world. I think we're in that same circumstance today. I think Iowans are thirsty for someone to basically say, here's where the state is, here's where it needs to go, and here's how, if you vote for me or support me, here's how I'm going to take you there.
Vilsack spent the afternoon with people in Indianola at a forum hosted by the Iowa Democratic Party. He spoke to them about the need to preserve small and mid-sized farming operations and create new opportunities in the agriculture system. Iowa Democrats say it's the first in a series of events they'll hold focused on agriculture and Iowa's rural economy. Ben.
Amanda, thank you.